We're about to get controversial. In fact, we're about to get a little bit ranty. We're going to talk about book to media adaptations. I don't believe books past the 1930s should be adapted into film or television. By the way, 1930s isn't like an exact estimate. It's just kind of a rough roundabout sort of thing. But maybe anything pre-code is safe. Past that shouldn't be adapted. That's what I'm gonna go for. Quick disclaimer. Please do not be offended. I am going to try my hardest to not use absolutes and sound very open-minded, because I am open-minded. I don't want you to agree with me just because you feel like you have to. If you disagree, that's a wonderful sign that you have free will and you are your own person. So I will not be offended if you disagree. In fact, I love healthy discourse and debate and all the conversations. That'll be super fun. So please tell me your opinions down below. This is just fun. This is fun right now. Okay? Okay. I first came to this opinion when I was a little kid and my mother always instilled in me that the book is better than the film. The book is better than the TV show. To be fair, I do agree with her. I have now studied, I actually took a class on book to film adaptations and how they're done. And though I see what they're trying to do, they're still kind of wrong in my opinion. When I was 15 or 16, I came up with a story idea about a brothel. And because I was just a novelist in my mind, I mean, I did try to write a song once. Just because I know how to play the guitar and write stories does not mean they go hand in hand. Learn that one as well. Oh gosh, my hair is going to be so knotted. It's so hot. It's so hot. So I sat down to write this book about a brothel. And oh, did I just keep writing and rewriting that story? It just didn't work, and I couldn't figure out why it is. I asked myself all the questions authors told me to ask myself, which is, what's the proper tense? Is it first person, second person, third person? What is the age range that this book is for? And I did all that stuff, but I forgot to ask myself, I think, arguably one of the most important questions, which is, which medium best represents the story? And what took me a couple of years to figure out is that it should be a mini-series, not a book. And once I kind of figured that out, it was so much easier to plot. Now, obviously you can say, well, that was just your situation. There are more examples of this. Neil Gaiman, Stardust. I remember at one of his book readings I went to, he talked about how when whoever made Stardust, I'm forgetting, approached him to make the film, he very clearly stated, this cannot be turned into a film. It's meant to be a book. It can only be a book. It will not work in film formats. And they just said, listen, we don't care. You either get to write the script or we're going to have someone else write it. Either way, we are turning this into a film. So he said, okay, I'll write it. And then he changed the story. What he did was he turned a very whimsical, somewhat serious book into satire about the book and changed the last quarter of the film, or it was just the ending. Cannot remember. It's been a while since I've read it. It is one of my favorite books, and it's been an even longer time since I've seen it. Because of this, the book did fail in the box office. And I do believe it would have failed even if he did the exact adaptation. I've read the book. It reads something... What is he doing? It didn't work. It was something like the original King Arthur. I mean, look at every King Arthur adaptation that's ever come to life. They've all kind of failed in the box office. It didn't work as a film. Maybe it could work as a TV show, but we're going to get to that in a bit. Another example, let's just talk about TV shows in general and adaptation. Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's a hot topic right now, let's be real. They tried turning it into a film, and it was... We don't talk about it. It doesn't exist. It was terrible. I haven't actually seen it, but I saw the trailer and I was like, what is this? And now it's just been announced that the new Netflix series that's coming out as of this moment the original creators left because Netflix wanted to make it more sexual and gory. They wanted to make it an adult show. They wanted to make it darker, and it's a kids show. And this is one of my issues as well, that kind of goes back to the book thing, is that when someone adapts something, very rarely do they actually care about the source material, the heart and soul of the source material. They see the name, they see the fame and audience attached to it, and then they want to Hollywoodize it. And they turn it into something sexy, something steamy, and something violent, because that's all they really care about. It's so gross to me how they completely amputate a beloved story, regardless of what the original format of it was. Now, obviously, there are cases where this doesn't happen, and I generally find when books are respected for that adaptation, they are generally books from the early 1900s and prior. A good example of this is Little Women, directed by Greta Gerwig. That was an incredible adaptation. It's just, I'm still baffled by how well they did it. Yes, she did change things. She did. She changed the order of things, and there's that whole thing with the ending. I mean, she was somehow able to take the story Louisa May Alcott wanted to tell and combine it with the story that the publishers made her tell and made it accurate to both. And as far as the changing of scenes goes, through my book to film adaptation class I had to take, we kind of learned about the power of mise-en-scene. And I will say the movie industry is pretty good at bringing the feel of it to life. A good example of this is the 2003 Peter Pan. It is one of the best adaptations out there after the book. The feel is correct. They perfectly match the mise-en-scene to the film. The issue is with the script, and I think that's the main thing I'm getting at. The scripts are always awful, which just really tears at my heartstrings, because it's like a writer and the director destroying another writer's work. The prop team, they're doing great though. The people who I believe adapt books pretty well is Masterpiece Theater, the Masterpiece Classics. I think those adaptations are superb. I don't think there's anything better out there. I mean, and then comes the whole argument, which Pride and Prejudice is better. Is it the 90s version with Colin Firth or the 2005 version with Keira Knightley? And guess what? In a Jane Austen class I took, we read Pride and Prejudice while watching each scene. So we would read the section and watch the adapted scene for each version. And I can honestly say they are both equally correct and wrong. Before you say one is more superior than the other, don't say because of the adaptation, say because you preferred some certain form of acting. They are equally accurate and equally as inaccurate as the other. You are allowed to love both. And the reason why I believe the whole pre-1930s things, other than the nostalgia that a director or writer might have for a book, which is why I think they do a really good job at adapting those. Greta Gerwig said that Little Women was so much of her youth that she wanted to do Louisa May Alcott right. That being said, the new Secret Garden coming out just looks atrocious. I'm not putting down screenwriters, by the way. They're getting the bank. They're doing their job. I just think it's so important to, if you're going to adapt something into anything, if it's book to film or film to book, because Red Riding Hood by Catherine Hardwicke, she did that. I don't know if you remember, but she made the film Little Red Riding Hood, paid an author to write her script into a book, to publish it so that way she can get a reader audience to go see the film, but made sure that the book was missing the last chapter, so you were like, oh my gosh, who's the wolf? I mean, it was cool marketing, but I don't like the idea of writing a book simply for marketing, just like I don't like the idea of making a film simply for marketing, and I think that's the point. I want to consume art because it was made because someone was feeling that passion and that need to create it. And I feel like when you just make books to film or books to TV shows, you're getting rid of the art. It can be done. going back to Greta Gerwig. It can be done, but I think this whole idea of people just writing a book because you want it to be a film, or you just making a film because you want it to be a book and all this stuff, it's just like, just create to create because you feel the passion. But then again, also, if you just want the buck, no shade whatsoever, money is important. And I think it's ridiculous to say that it isn't. I wish it wasn't important. I wish we could just create. Oh, this argument's going all over the place. But also with the pre-1930s thing, the reason why I kind of let them off the hook is because film wasn't that big then. There were films in the 19th century, but it wasn't like this hugely accessible form of art. Before like Hollywood became pretty big and movie theaters were a lot more accessible and then TVs entered into the picture, ooh, that changed a lot. A writer's main choice to get their book out to as many people as possible was to either write a play, an opera, a ballad, a poem, or a book of some sorts, as well as entries into newspapers and magazines. And honestly, out of all those options, the cheapest one for almost anyone in the world would have been the book or the magazine and newspaper things. And I know not everyone could read, but there was generally someone within the community or the home that did know how to read and would read aloud to other people. I think that's why they chose stories. So when people adapt things by Austen or Bronte or Dickens or Gaskell, I do understand that because sometimes they do work better as a TV show than a book. Now we edit things down a bit more. We also have shorter attention spans, which I do think it is a bad thing. I do think we should be able to have the patience to read longer, wordier content, but the truth is that we don't. So I do understand that adaptation, so we can get the heart and feel of these stories because they are important to know. Just like, it's important to know where things come from. I don't know. And then finally, let's wrap this all up together and talk about, well, what about TV shows? I hear this argument a lot. What about TV shows? Do I have to remind you how badly Game of Thrones went down? I mean, the first season was great, and I remember thinking, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe things can be adapted just into TV shows because they have more time to like give the book everything that it needs. But then what ends up happening is money becomes a thing and people then overdo it. Like, I haven't seen this, so I can't use this as part of my argument, but American Gods, it's one book, and then we're getting a season 2. Like, we are just stretching things out to get content, and it's like, just give us an original idea. And most of the time, they butcher the book to film so badly, like the 6th Harry Potter book. That was my favorite book. I don't know how I feel about Harry Potter now. I know how I feel about J.K. Rowling. She's a turf. But I remember hating the film because they focused on only 3 chapters of the book, which was the Harry Ginny love thing, which I thought was the smallest part of the plot. Like, it wasn't even a main plot, but yet that was the main point of the film. And then there's things like Ella Enchanted. I loved Ella Enchanted. And you know what? I also loved the film. Were they the same thing? No. I remember thinking they should have just named the film something different, and we would have been fine. Really quick, I'm going to jump in here and say that I forgot to mention the main part of my argument, which is who are these adaptations made for? Because if it's made for the reader, then shouldn't we be writing the scripts in a way that the reader, that the fan recognizes? Or if it's to bring in a new audience, a new fan base, then shouldn't we write a script that makes sense to the moviegoer? Just saying. And I'm not blaming the scriptwriters. I do kind of think it's the industry saying we don't need to put that much effort into the scripts just because we already have a viewership regardless, because it's all to do with money. Long story short, this is kind of what I'm getting at. Does this make sense? I don't know. I just don't like book to film adaptations. Will I go see every film adaptation to every book I love? Yes, except for The New Secret Garden. I'm not going to go see that. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.